Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. Tonight, I would like to review the situation regarding the Commonwealth team that is now in Zimbabwe. Um, Reportedly, there to review Zimbabwe's application to rejoin the Commonwealth. The European Union had the biggest election monitoring observer mission of 246 people for the 2018 elections in Zimbabwe. The team condemned those elections as a farce. And I just read an extract from that report. Notably, major shortcomings in the pre-election environment impacted on the free expression of the will of the electorate. State resources were misused in favor of the incumbent, and coverage by state media was heavily biased in favor of the ruling party. Further, the Electoral Commission lacked full independence and appeared to not always act in an impartial manner. The final results, as announced by the Election Commission, contained numerous errors and lacked adequate traceability, transparency, and verifiability. Finally, the restrictions on political freedom, the excessive use of force by the security forces, and abuse of human rights in the post election period undermined the corresponding positive aspects during the pre election campaign. As such, many aspects of the 2018 election in Zimbabwe failed to meet international standards. This report was followed by a commentary by Professor Stephen Chan of London School of, of Studies, University of London. He was in Zimbabwe for those elections as well. And his comment was that the Commonwealth team that also observed the mission was on the verge of granting of well submitting a report favorable to the readmission of Zimbabwe to the Commonwealth if it would not been for the violence on the 1st of August 2018. In other words, the Commonwealth team was so eager to get Zimbabwe readmitted, they would have ignored the country's failure to produce something as basic as a verified voters roll, and would have lowered the international election standard just to get Zimbabwe readmitted. One of the main reasons why Zimbabwe was booted out of the Commonwealth in the first place in 2003 was the country's failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And the 2018 was supposed to be a litmus test. If they passed it, they would be readmitted. they failed. And now the Commonwealth team is in Zimbabwe trying to assess the possibility of readmitting Zimbabwe into the Commonwealth. This is particularly worrying, given that the elections were coming next year, and it would have been the appropriate time to see whether Zimbabwe was ready to hold free, fair, and credible elections, and therefore then readmit it to the Commonwealth. And for them to be, therefore, to be jumping the gun and readmitting Zimbabwe now is, to say the least, questionable. Why now? Why not wait until they've reassessed them and seen whether they're prepared to hold free and fair elections? What's the hurry? But of course, if you go back to Professor Chan's report that the Commonwealth was prepared to overlook all the political violence and all the other shenanigans to readmit Zimbabwe into the Commonwealth, you realize immediately why they are so keen to do it now. They don't want to wait for the election and then find themselves in a situation where they've got to turn around again and say no. The other question is, while they're in Zimbabwe, they're supposed to be seeing many Zimbabweans. And if they were concerned about being asked awkward questions, why they are jumping the gun, and many other such awkward questions, they need not worry, at least not so far as it concerned Hopewell Chinono. He's one of the Zimbabweans who have met the team and has produced a summary of his opinion. I started by telling them that my life was turned round through a 2-year Commonwealth visa that allowed me and many others to work in Britain. Chinono testified. I added that this is one of many Commonwealth benefits to ordinary Zimbabweans that were denied to them when ZANU PF petulantly and arbitrarily pulled the country out of the Commonwealth simply because it didn't want to adhere to the Constitution prescription of rule of law. I, however, added that there is nothing to be gained from shutting the door against Zimbabwe as a country of over 15 million in order to punish a political party, ZANU PF, and its regime in power. I added that dialogue remains the only viable option on the table. The 15 million Zimbabweans, they have suffered directly or and indirectly from the 42 years and counting of ZANU PF corrupt and tyrannical rule. Over 40,000 have been murdered by the regime in cold blood. The principal reason Zimbabwe was booted out of the Commonwealth was to pressure the regime to adhere to the democratic values and rule of law. That's the only way to end the dictatorship and the tragic human suffering and death. The regime has done absolutely nothing to dismantle the corrupt and tyrannical dictatorship. Indeed, the economic situation is now a lot worse than it was in 2003, and the regime has responded by increasing the political repression. If ZANU-PF is readmitted back into the Commonwealth with all these additional, with all its dictatorial powers, this will send a clear message to the regime that the regime has won and can keep its powers. After 42 years of dictatorship, the people of Zimbabwe are desperate to end the dictatorship, not to surrender to its whims. So the argument being given here, advanced by Chinono, doesn't make any sense at all. The benefits to all Zimbabweans of ending this ZANU-PF dictatorship far outweighs the inconveniences the few have suffered by not having Commonwealth 2-year working visas, etc. Indeed, only a fool would even compare the two, much less suggest keeping the dictatorship for even one more day. I suggested, continued Chinono, that there must be reform benchmarks to which Zimbabwe's admission must be tied to, like the release of all political prisoners and dropping of all trumped up charges against political opposition and government critics. This will measure ZANU-PF's sincerity. It is when one hears such trash from one who claims to be award-winning international journalist, filmmaker, two-time Africa Journalist of the Year, Africa Leadership Fellow, Newman Fellow, Harvard educated, that one truly appreciates why Zimbabwe is in a serious mess. Of course, it is idiotic that ZANU-PF should be earning brownie points from releasing innocent people the regime has arrested illegally in the first place. You do not thank the thief for his generosity in giving back what he stole from you in the first place, especially one who gives with one hand, makes a big song and dance about it, and steals even more with the other. It is bad enough that the peasant in the rural backwaters should be so easily conned, but not a Harvard educated and award winning journalist. The truth is, Zimbabwe is in a serious economic and political mess, and the country is not getting out of the mess as long as the country remains a pariah state, ruled by corrupt and tyrannical thugs who rig elections to stay in power. Zimbabwe needs all the tools at its disposal to pressure the ZANU-PF to accept the need to to implement democratic reforms and hold free, fair, and credible elections. The sanctions imposed by the West is one such tool, and being kicked out of the Commonwealth was another. Lifting the sanctions and readmitting Zimbabwe will only embolden ZANU PF and all the hardships and sacrifices in the fight for democracy, justice, rule of law, human dignity would all have been in vain. And we what will we gain from giving up the fight? A few Zimbabweans getting a Commonwealth 2-year working visa. How sickening. To go back to Chinono's report, those who would give up, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety, said Benjamin Franklin, one of America's statesmen and the nation's founding fathers. We in Zimbabwe are in this economic and political mess because we only care about me here and now. And we're even welcoming the political system that has denied us freedom, human rights, and even the right to life. We are trading solid gold in exchange for fool's gold. Over and above other things, other issues discussed that will remain off the record, continued Chinono. I said that I was not opposed to the readmission of Zimbabwe into the Commonwealth. Doing so as a recipient of the Commonwealth arrangements would be no different to kicking the ladder to stop others climbing, he concluded. Whatever else people say about Dr. Chinono, no one should ever say he is naive. He knows that readmitting ZANU-PF into the Commonwealth, when the regime has not implemented even one democratic reform, will help keep the regime in power. He knows that he is peddling the people's liberty for fool's gold. Thank you very much, and good night.